Rob Kendall speaking with Brian Woodard, the head coach of the Plainfield Quakers. Coach, how's it going?
Doing well, Rob, and yourself?
We're doing just great. Obviously, a tough loss on Friday night, man. A super exciting game. Let's start with some of the positives, and that was the offensive side of the ball. You guys consistently throughout the game made plays, moved the ball. You got to be pretty pleased with your team.
Yeah, anytime you put up 28 points, we feel like that's always enough to win a game. You get in occasions where you have some shootout kind of games. Really, I wouldn't say it turned into one of those kind of scenarios, but for a fairly low scoring first half, both teams started to find the end zone in the second half. So yeah, very very happy with what we did. Honestly, if you would have asked me, previous weekend about where we would be in terms of yards, I would have assumed we would have, rushed for around 100, 125 and thrown for well over 200. And that wasn't the case. So that's both a good and a bad thing. I know our passing game is going to get better. It's going to improve. And we were, I know it's one of those deals. We were really close on a lot of balls Friday night, and just credit their defensive backs. They made some plays. So good news, bad news there. Good news is running game was on point. The bad news was our passing game wasn't quite what it needed to be.
Yeah, you mentioned this, the ability to run the football, and obviously, like I said, it's sometimes hard in losses to take away positives, but the ability to consistently move the ball, especially in the middle of the field. I mean, you guys wasn't like you were running jet sweeps and getting big around
Right.
the end. You guys were moving the ball inside the tackles, and that's a pretty positive thing.
Yeah, it is, and a lot of that credit to our running backs as well as our offensive line. It's everybody together. A lot of times, Noah and Troy were the two primary ball carriers. They made us right a couple times when the blocking wasn't what it was supposed to be, and credit to those guys. It's a mark of a good running back. Sometimes we can't get it exactly right up front, and they, like I said, they made us right a couple times. Had some explosive plays. Super excited for those two young men. They're gonna have great years. Just like Noah, I think 3 scores Friday night, and Troy. A lot of you will remember Troy Harrison. Troy didn't play football last year. Key member on our track team. Played as a sophomore. Is a really good JV player as a sophomore. So getting Troy back to football when he decided to come back in the springtime was a huge pickup for us, and I think people saw that on Friday night.
When you look at the passing game, and it seemed like during the broadcast, and we're just going in real time from memory, so you've obviously had a chance to review the film. The passing game in the middle of the field seemed to be a little bit better than the passing game to the sidelines. Is that just an accident? Is there a reason things like that happen? And do you look at that going into week number 2?
Well, a couple different things there. You look at, and this is a lot of high school offenses, certainly ours to a certain extent. You have RPO reads, run pass option reads, where you have a linebacker that you are saying if he commits to the run, we throw it behind him, right? If he drops to the pass, we hand the ball off, right? So sometimes those RPO reads kind of determine where the ball goes, and then of course you have your predetermined pass plays, and those down the field pass plays were the ones where we just we just weren't quite there, and so yeah, some of it's dictated by coverage, some of it's dictated by the play call, and sometimes it's dictated by the matchup. Hey, we like this matchup on the outside. We like our 6'4" guy versus their 5'11" guy. So that's a long answer to your question, but
It's a great answer.
Yeah, well, it's not just one. So I guess to summarize it, it's not just one thing, right? So.
Let's take a moment to thank the sponsors who make Plainfield football broadcasts possible all year long. CCB Contracting, Geodis, Goodell Financial, Julia Burbridge of Remax Centerstone, Plainfield, Kyle Burnfield, Mortgage Lender at Flagstar Bank, Team Turley, Fairway Mortgage, Bailey and Wood Financial Group, African Plum Home, My IT Indy at myitindy.com, I-70 Wrecker Service and Garage, BGW Construction LLC, Beacon Sign Company, Jeff Brown Photography, and Karen Alexander Photography. All right, Coach, before we switch to the defensive side of the ball, I did want to say something that I just thought was really great driving into the game on Friday. I loved that the road that heads to the high school was paved in American flags. And, that shouldn't be a thing that we have to point out and say, wow, that's really awesome. But in this day and age, you don't really often see that a lot. And I think it's great that the Plainfield school system is still totally embracing this country and all the great things it's done.
100%. I think this is our second fall doing the, and you're going to have to forgive me because I can't remember. There's an exact name for it. I think it's the Avenue of Flags, but our Optimus program here in Plainfield was a backer behind that, and what a great place for it to be at your school. The high school for many communities, Plainfield certainly is one of those, is kind of the focal point of the community, and anybody that has been around here, knows that our building is in use every weekend. You want to talk about some really cool stuff. Plainfield High School is the honor flight location, and if you don't know what the honor flight is, that's where World War II veterans, veterans of Korea and Vietnam, go and get to tour our nation's capital, and then they come back to Plainfield High School and they have a huge ceremony for them. And that's really cool, and from youth sports to you name it. So yeah, it's a really cool thing for us, and I'm very happy that we have that, and we can show those things to not only the people that come to our football games, but a lot of activities here at Plainfield.
Yeah, the other side of the pregame ceremonies was youth football night, and I know you've done this many times, but it's still got to be pretty cool to know that many little kids and their parents are invested in Plainfield football. I think it's a testimony to the program that you've built, and the program will be in good hands going forward because so many kids want to be involved and are willing to show up, not just to support your program, but they want to support Plainfield football as a collective.
Yeah, speaking of that, one of the really things to look forward to in the future. We just got started last Thursday with our 7th and 8th grade seasons kicking off at Avon South with both of those groups, and both of those groups are over 45 players for each of those groups, and that's awesome. So just nearing 100 players for our 7th and 8th grade groups, and it's going to translate very well once they start working their way up through freshmen and then eventually onto the varsity field for Friday nights.
Well, let's talk about Friday night defense. And look, I guess the good news is if we'd have played as well as we did in those 2-point conversions, we'd have won the game by 100 points because our 2-point conversion stoppage was impeccable, perfect. What was the difference between the goal line stands, for those 2-point conversions where we were highly effective, and then it seemed like Greenfield Central really throughout the course of moving the football was able to run some of those same plays and do a lot better?
Yeah, well, I think there's a couple things at play here. Our run defense, when you look at total number of yards given up, we gave up just shy of 250 yards, which I'm fine with, given the fact that they ran the ball approximately 40 times. That's okay. You make them earn the field. There was, the last drive of the game, I wasn't happy. They pushed the ball right down the field, and that's just not acceptable with how well we had played versus the run for long stretches of the game. The thing that frustrated me beyond measure, they had 3 plays of over 50 yards. 3 plays encapsulated nearly 170 yards of total offense. And there were 2 pass plays and 1 long run. And in all 3 of those, and taking nothing away from Greenfield Central, they called the plays, but they were mental breakdowns in our defense. We didn't do what we were supposed to do. And this is, it's not going to single kids out on this show. This is not NFL, Sunday. It was just one of those things that we blew some assignments, and that's what happens on defense when you blow assignments. If you mess up on offense, you probably get a chance to punt the ball. You mess up on defense, you might give up 6 points. So that was my big takeaway. We got to find a way to stop the explosive plays. How we played in the goal line and those 2-point conversion plays almost cost Greenfield Central the game, because they stopped kicking. They kept going for 2, and eventually it was going to turn into a mathematics equation that they weren't going to have the answer for. So yeah, there's some bright spots for sure. It's just those explosive plays were ultimately what cost us the game defensively.
We were talking about this during the broadcast, that it's got to be frustrating for you as a coach because as a collective, as a team, you guys were doing a great job. But sometimes when you've got that many guys up towards the line of scrimmage, because obviously they've got 3 guys in the backfield, if they're going to pass the ball a corner, a safety just has to make an open field tackle. And there's no scheming that can prevent that because, as you said, it's a numbers game. So I'm sure as a coach, that's pretty frustrating when it's like, okay, they made the short catch in a couple instances, which is fine. But then when you miss that open field tackle, that's what goes for the 50 or 70, 75-yard touchdown.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we talked to our players on Saturday. It's like, there's only so much we can do as a coaching staff in terms of preparation, right? There's the mental preparation, what we call situational football. Okay. It's third down and 18. Okay. Where do I need to be as a defensive back relative to that wide receiver, knowing that, hey, they're probably going to throw the ball here. So, why not be back at 7, 8, 9 yards? Give yourself a little cushion, right? If they do throw it and catch it in front of me, I come up, I make the tackle. The second part of that is the physical side of, like you just mentioned, okay? Are we preparing our players for those open field tackling situations? And the answer to that is absolutely, every single day in practice. So it becomes incumbent upon the player to, okay, I got to get this mistake fixed. I can do it. It's certainly fixable. It's just something that, I have to work on as a player. And I, just talked to our coaches this morning. Our job as coaches is to provide the best pathway for success for our players. Our players' job is to get it fixed. So, the good news and all that is the problems are fixable. We just need to do a little bit better job of getting it done on Fridays.
Let's real quick thank again the sponsors that make Plainfield football possible: CCB Contracting, Geodis, Gunnell Financial, Julia Burbridge, Remax Centerstone, Plainfield, Kyle Burnfield, Mortgage Lender, Flagstar Bank, Team Turley Fairway Mortgage, Bailey and Wood Financial Group, African Plum Home, by IT Indy at myitindy.com, I-70 Wrecker Service and Garage, BGW Construction LLC, Beacon Sign Company, Jeff Brown Photography, Karen Alexander Photography. All right, Coach. I love Plainfield football and the program, but you guys could have given us a shorter road game this week, right? I mean, all the way to Lafayette to take on Harrison. How did this matchup kind of come to be, and what did they bring to the table?
Well, first off, I'm with you on the travel. This needed to be at a neutral site. We would have been happy to meet them halfway. Yeah, it's a haul up there. So this was more on the athletic director end of things, where football coaches are some, I wouldn't say we're left out of the loop. I'm very fortunate. Our athletic director here at Plainfield, Mr. Rodkey, keeps me in the loop on just about everything. But I think Tri-West, there was kind of some miscommunication perhaps about where, what they wanted to do moving forward with the week 2 game. I think from the football side, their head coach, good dude, good group. They wanted to keep playing us. I think the athletic side of things maybe was a little bit wishy-washy. So rather than kind of get caught flat-footed, Harrison was open. Mr. Rodkey comes from that area of the state. So I know he was very, he liked to go up there and play. And I just, tell me where you want me to go, boss. We'll play whoever. So that's how it happened. So, Harrison, great coach, great coaching tree. Family, the Peebles family. Terry is their head coach. Bill, many of you recognize as being the Cathedral head football coach. So, they're going to be very well prepared, and they're a really good team. So we know we got our hands full, not only with a long trip, but with a very good team at the end of it.
Yeah, and look, I totally understand from a Plainfield perspective, because if you wait too long and somebody ultimately says no, then you don't have a game, and schools
Right.
have run into that, and you can't do that. It's just, and again, we were talking about this on Friday. The only real county matchups now, and I loved for several years there, it was you guys in Avon and you guys in Tri-West, and one school's a little bigger than you, one's a little smaller than you, but the games are, largely competitive. But really the only county games left now are Tri-West and Danville and Brownsburg and Avon, and maybe there's another one in there that I'm missing somewhere, but by and large, the county rivalries are kind of gone. And as a, Hendricks County lifer, and I know you are too, that's a little disappointing.
I agree. I'm 100% on board with you. And, I think, and I mentioned this from, time to time, but, I coached, went to school in Evansville and coached in Evansville. And one of the really cool things about that town is it doesn't matter whether you're a 5A team or a 1A team. I mean, you play those teams. I mean, now granted, the smaller school teams down there are really good. You're talking, Memorial, Mater Dei. I mean, you're talking some really good football teams, but I mean, it's everybody plays everybody. That doesn't happen here. And I know you're a Brownsburg supporter, and I partially blame Brownsburg for some of that starting. I mean, in basketball, in track, and they don't participate in any of the county tournaments.
Is that for real?
Yeah, yeah. They participate in boys basketball and girls basketball. They won't play anybody else. I mean, that's a different thing, right? We're talking football here. That's different. I'm not a Brownsburg hater. But going back to your question, though, it is unfortunate. I getting to play Avon, getting to play Tri-West, Danville. Those are all three teams at one time we had on the schedule. Now we don't have any of them, and to have to travel 2 hours north is certainly a lot worse than having to travel 10 minutes up the road to Avon. So I appreciate what you're saying, and I don't think you're wrong at all.
A couple minutes left here with the head coach of Plainfield Quakers, Brian Woodard. How do you prepare for a long trip like this? Or is there anything different? Normally it's a 30-minute bus ride.
Yeah.
Now it's an hour and 15 minutes. Is there anything different that you do other than leave earlier, I guess?
Well, you just hit the nail on the head. Times change in terms of having to leave early, and that's really hard right now. Limited number of bus drivers determine, it's a harder window of time to work within, because you have to wait for drivers to get here. So, we bumped the start time back to 7:30. So yeah, you leave a little bit earlier. Nothing really you can do. You try to get there as soon as you can. That way you can kind of stretch your legs a little bit before you get ready to go out. But, another part of it is you get ready for it in the summer. We made a trip up specifically to Purdue so we could, take that 2-hour-ish drive in the summertime. You just get ready for those long bus trips. And, I think the last part of that is getting your players ready for it mentally during the week, getting them to understand, boys, we're going to be on the bus a long time, so traveling up that stretch of road is not going to be easy, but we'll have our guys loaded up and squared away and ready to go and ready to kick off at 7:30 on Friday.
Yeah, and before I let you go, I did want to make that point that it is a 7:30 kickoff on Friday as opposed to the usual 7 o'clock.
Yep.
All right, before we get you out of here, Coach, as we always end the show, somebody behind the scenes who makes Plainfield football what it is, but doesn't always get a lot of cheers or hoorahs.
Yeah. Well, obviously you always do a really good job of reading through our sponsor list, but two groups kind of came on board here late in the summer. The Flapjacks here in Plainfield and our local Hardee's here on Plainfield, both of those located right on 40.
I love that Hardee's. I love it.
They are donating 100 plus whatever the number is biscuits every Saturday. We have biscuits and gravy, and Flapjacks is donating all the gravy for our meals on Saturday morning. And they're not on our sponsor list, but I mean, that's a huge deal for them to do that. And so appreciate those folks. And, if you're looking to go eat breakfast someplace, there you go. Hardee's and Flapjacks in Plainfield. Love it.
Every year I come out and test the internet at the facility ahead of the first game. And our man, Tim Wooten, who is one of the great IT guys in all of Central Indiana, helps me out. And I love doing that because then I go to Hardee's and have my lunch right there in Plainfield. We don't have a Hardee's here in Brownsburg. So
what do you get when you go?
Oh, I usually get that chicken fingers meal.
Oh, very nice. There are chicken fingers. If you're not, they're underrated. I'm just saying.
Yeah, and when I was a kid, and maybe they'll bring this back someday, Hardee's used to have great fried chicken. So maybe someday they'll bring back that.
Ooh, you're getting in the way. You're showing your age a little bit there.
Yeah. And again, not to do a stroll down memory lane, but the Hardee's in Brownsburg is now the Flapjacks in Brownsburg. So it's like a small world, collision there. So yes, Coach, as always, we love talking to you. We love talking with you. We love your insights into football. Let's get a big win on Friday night, and then look forward to talking to you next Monday.
You bet, Rob. Thanks so much.